KMT is pondering this last ban a little bit, because if they leave enough up, then things are going to jump back towards them.
Well, Shyvana was taken. That means Zoro will be locking in that Renekton. So far, he's been farming in the top lane. Let's see if he's going to do more in this game, because farming does not win games. And Olaf has been let through, and looks like it's going to get locked straight in.
Renekton being picked over the Olaf, despite the Olaf being a ban, and the Renekton not being a ban for most of this. It could just be a ban because NIP doesn't play it. I know Wicked's had a lot of experience against Zoro Zero's top laner, and maybe Hercubot doesn't like it in the jungle, but KMT, they love it. They get two really powerful picks for Renekton, who, even though he has a high win rate so far, isn't considered like god tier right now.
Well, the next two picks, will we see an AD carry? Will we see them supports? Will we see a Mumu? Because,
please no.
Unsurprisingly, it's not been banned.
Please no.
And I'm interested to see how Hercubot's going to go with this one. There's a lot of pressure on him. We talked about the pressure on his shoulders.
Lee Sin, that's his classic.
This is a champion that he does very well on. This is maybe Hercubot falling back to what he knows.
Yeah, what is more of an opposite of Amumu for early game pressure? It's absolutely Lee Sin. And they can do lantern ganks on this. It just gives Lee Sin like a jungle gym to play on in some of these games. This is their change. I like this. NIP is going to go with a highly mobile team comp. I'd expect their mid laner Nukeduck to probably pick some type of assassin to roam the map as much as possible, because they're going to need to make plays against this KMT lineup.
Could have a switch in supports here. Fiddlesticks could be jungle as well, whoever has been very big in jungle lately. So maybe reacting to that Lee Sin. We'll see whether it gets locked in or not, whether that's going to be Vander or Jankos.
It would be a bit of an odd pick to pick the Fiddle right now.
That's the jungler.
It does lane well with Lucian, but if it's a support, it's much more likely support. And Vi has been crushing some kids in the jungle so far.
Well, we just saw in the TSM Lemon Dogs game how big it went in that. It was a 7-1-1.
7-1 in a game where they were very outclassed. Yeah.
Fantastic play. The lock-ins do come in, and it is going to be a Fiddlestick support. First time we see him this weekend, and that means we could be seeing the Draven from Freeze. It's some champion that has actually benefited quite heavily from 3.14, but he's not going to go with it. He's going to go with tried and tested Caitlyn.
It's what he played the most after Draven was nerfed down in the 2013 season, Season 3. And it's his tried and true, like you say. That with Thresh is a safe, fast push lane. Hercubot's going to have a lot of early game pressure. And the only thing that is a bit surprising to me is the fact that Nukeduck's Orianna isn't necessarily the assassin I was expecting, but another just lane pusher.
A lane bully, almost certainly, but could it be against Nidalee? Those spears, we saw Froggen with it for Alliance the other day, 2 days ago. They're all blending into one when you have a lot of best of 5 series. But don't forget, this is KMT. Maybe now starting to play comfortable.
Maybe so. They're also having to adapt for the first time. Overpow has been so impactful in these first 2 games. Finally, they push him off the champion. It's a different champion for Zazus. It's a different champion for Celavar. Everything actually is something they haven't played before on KMT, which to me, I give kind of a bravo to NIP to pushing a team that was comfortable in 2-0 onto completely new things for this next game.
Well, they are the champion choices. What do we make of these two teams? Because, as you mentioned, very different. No Mumu, no Curse of the Sad Mummy being thrown out there, no big beefy top laners, also though I say that, an Olaf versus a Renekton, something we haven't seen so far.
Here's the dangerous thing. NIP's had a hard time initiating on KMT this whole time. KMT has really good disengage and very strong poke. The Nidalee plus Lucian combo, as far as poking and disengaging, is great, and I think Fiddlesticks is one of the best supports to have in a poke composition, because as soon as they overcommit to dive on you, you get a free Crow Storm right on top of them after that. So it's a poke comp actually for KMT, and NIP is picking a strong laning team that will hopefully have enough time to initiate.
I'm also seeing that scary combo of Assault and Battery on towards the bottom lane, or just anything engaged from the Vi, followed by the Fear, and that Fear is really long. It may only be 2 to 3 seconds, but in a fight, that is a lifetime.
Yeah, it feels a lot longer than 3 seconds. Yeah. It's the longest 3 seconds of an AD carry's life when they get feared by Fiddlesticks.
Well, the pressure on these players. This is now, safe to say, the biggest game of both of these teams' lives. KMT, will they manage to get in towards the LCS? The pressure will be on them. They've been underdogs throughout this. There's been no reason to be fearful for them, but suddenly the realization may start setting in. For Ninjas in Pyjamas, they could be out.
And for a lot of these players, they haven't seemed that great ever since the finals at Gamescom. Because Nukeduck did great coming into that, but then they were very underwhelming at the World Championships, and they were underwhelming on their one LAN event, and then they pulled out of the next one.
And then they withdrew from the DreamHack tournament, which KMT actually made it to the final on. So here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Could it be the final game of the night? Will Ninjas in Pyjamas manage to drag it out a little bit longer? And more importantly, how long will this game go on for?
Well, the first one was long.
50 minutes.
Second one was
50 minutes.
Also long. Third one was
law of averages would say
72 kills.
It could be
32-minute game.
We can only hope, chat. We can only hope.
We do
not
have Lee Sin
expecting
in
to
this
see
one.
much from level 1, though. We do have a Lee Sin, and more importantly, we have a Vi. So both of these junglers are going to be looking for kills.
Yeah, and as soon as Vi hits level 6, you know some action is happening. There's going to be a lot of people pushed up in lanes because we know how Zoro plays his lane, and we also know how Freeze and Caitlyn can push up as well. We said this last game, and it was true. There will be more aggression in this game than the previous one.
Absolutely. I think we can safely say that.
And it's not like that last game was bad. The last game was actually very well played.
Very tactical.
There was so many hard engages and tons of nearly fights where they're bouncing back and forth from each other. Let's just hope this one has more action.
Both junglers are stood just a screen apart from one another. Lee Sin and Vi, which would be Hercubot and Jankos. Jankos, so far, has had the better of Hercubot, honestly, in terms of jungle farm, despite the fact Hercubot has been on fast farmers in the form of a
absolutely.
Has
Jankos
been
has
outdone by Elise.
out of his mind so far. And it's strange, too, because a lot of people were hyping Hercubot. Obviously, all these European junglers love to hype as like the best jungler in Europe, a lot of them.
And there's added pressure on Hercubot because the team he left got through last night.
Yeah.
SK Gaming. They were almost out, but they qualified 3-2.
Can he do the same?
Now he's seen them in that position. He is in the same problem. And honestly,
they got to work both sides, actually. That's not a mistake because they want to have the brush for later and that side. And it's just a straight-up trade at this point. Hercubot's going to be a little bit delayed getting over there because he got invaded late. But as long as the Nidalee Spear doesn't steal this, he's got this under control.
He's got to land that spear. Not going to happen. Instead, it will be Hercubot. I mean, it's against the smite. It's a very tricky one, especially with the level 1. That spear is not going to do a great deal of damage.
Yeah, you could say the smite does a little bit more damage. It has been reduced in the 2014 season. Also, the cooldown has been lowered a lot more. So you see junglers spamming their smite every chance they get. It's actually no longer a good idea to do the smiteless leash that became super popular in Season 3 because the jungler ends up taking more damage and the smite's going to be up for the red buff anyway. As you can see, Jankos has smite for the red buff.
So let's look across all the picks and everything that they've taken. Pretty standard builds, in fact, identical builds across every single lane. So no surprises there, really.
Oh, no. There is a sweeper.
That's very true. I didn't look at the trinkets. I gotta remember to look at those trinkets, but it's actually going to be the fear. And the party popper's almost going off in that top lane as Zoro was feared and drained by Vander.
And for the first game, we have 2v1 lanes. They've been brawling against each other for a rather long time. And this time it's Freeze, Fast Push versus Lucian. And I think this actually favors NIP in the slightest. Not only because their lane can push faster, but because Lee Sin plus Renekton has more kill potential than the Olaf and Vi.
And of course, we also see the bottom lane. This series game length. I don't need reminding of that one, that's for sure. 51 minutes average game compared to 33 minutes throughout the weekend. It's definitely been a long drawn-out matchup.
The more 50-minute games we have, the higher the average goes for the weekend. It's going to get closer no matter what happens.
Maths genius alongside me. I wasn't aware of that one. I knew you were a Rubik's Cube master, but I wasn't sure you were a maths genius as well. Right now, though, we're seeing aggression in the top lane. Zoro thought he could get hold of Selavar, but instead he just dashes away from that stun.
Yeah, these junglers have yet to make a bit of an impact. I'm surprised they spent, both of them, actually spent time to kill the white. I personally don't like killing the white until later on in the game because it's so beefy at that point. Nukeduck, though, is putting on a bit of pressure there mid.
Yeah, definitely on a champion he favors in form of Orianna up against Overpower's Nidalee. We did see a very strong Nidalee, as I mentioned earlier, from Froggen. And actually, I asked him, and I was like, is that a champion you guys have been practicing hard? What's your favorite coming into the season, the 2014 patch with 3.14? And he's like, actually, I've played Nidalee about once in the last couple of weeks. It just happened to fit that time.
Yep. Froggen's always been the type of player to play anything he wants, unless it's Zed or Kha'Zix.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah.
He never really picked up onto those champions, despite the fact going Lee Sin and Jarvan during season 3. But right now, we have, again, the junglers making a bit of an appearance in the lanes, but not really creating too much pressure. Actually pushing them back on towards the tower, though, but Sanavar, you already see, clearing out that wave, no problem at all. Zoro buying himself some time. He's going to go back and buy. Will we see a lane swap coming out here?
Well, the junglers have definitely gotten a fair bit of experience, because Hercubot in particular spent a whole bunch of time in that 2v2 lane. Level 5, only 5 minutes and 30 seconds into the game, is a real high level for Lee Sin. Vi is in a similar boat at level 5. And it could absolutely be time for a lane swap if they really wanted to, but with Fiddlesticks running back towards the top lane, they're going to wait until the turrets fall before they do that.
Yeah, we see Renekton also going back up there, so sticking with the same. He has gone with a Doran's Blade along with that Doran's Shield he had earlier on, and of course getting himself a second ward along with the Trinket ward that he will get, so making sure he is fully safe in that top lane.
Yeah, you can see there's no real fear coming out from these guys. There's a lot of disengage potential for Mithy and Freeze. The only thing they have to worry about is a whole bunch of axes getting landed all at once, but they're not really going to worry about that as long as there's a huge wave of minions in front of the turret, and Zazus is low on mana, so he can land one but not have enough mana for a second.
No fear at all from Freeze there. He was stood right next to Jankos, knowing he wasn't really going to get hit, and just continued beating down that turret, taking it to half health now. And that was also a good leash there from Mithy, catching on towards Zazas, which is actually forcing him back a little bit. So we do see Jankos going back, taking that white, and returning to lane. Look, he's sticking in towards that bottom lane.
And farm for this game is rather even if you average it out. Like, Zoro is getting denied much more heavily than Zazus is, because Olaf's 1v2 is pretty much always been superior. His axe farming at the turret always helps him get those last few CS. But it's Nukeduck really who's helping out NIP the most by bullying Nidalee early so well. And this time, he's going to have a blue buff, which is a treat for him, because it's no longer Hercubot taking it on a Mumu.
Yeah, and like you say, he's managed to get a 15 CS advantage already. Now he's got that blue buff. He's going to keep on shoving it into Overpower. Overpower himself hasn't got a blue buff yet, because, well, Jankos has pretty much been babysitting that bottom lane the entire time. Top lane, though, look at the tower, taken down to half health as well. So both top and bottom duo lanes are putting a lot of pressure down on towards these turrets, which is why we are seeing the junglers babysitting it. They're not able to go and assist, not able to go looking for those ganks in the bottom lane to help with that duo lane. They're having to try and keep them top laners safe.
Well, it's a level 6 Vi now, so the next gank that he uses should have a bigger impact. I don't know if they can get one in before that turret goes down, and the Lantern was there for the retreat right as Olaf came up, so that was very well played by NIP.
So first turret of the game for Ninjas in Pyjamas. Could this be the turning point they needed in the last two matches? We see that white going down, and while you can see the difference, half hit points are taking off that top turret. Zoro keeping the farm going as well. They're actually fairly even, just 29 to 32. Olaf will be making moves, I feel, in towards that top, but it could be the Dragon they start off here.
Yeah, this looks like they'll be able to sneak it down in time, but Lee Sin's the type of jungler who can actually try for a steal and get out without any danger. They're going to try and maybe steal this when he lands a Q, but they're going to time it off, and he's got to wait a little while before going back. And he can still ward jump in and try a smite steal, though.
Waiting for everybody else to come in, not going to land it. He can just safeguard to Nukeduck if he requires.
Not even going to bother.
Well, once the cooldown's off, there was 4 members of KMT there, and you say not going to bother. But while that was happening, look at the top. Zoro goes straight around, tries to take that red.
That could be pretty beneficial for him, getting the red buff. He actually ulted to kill it faster. He's not expecting to fight anybody anytime soon.
Well, to be fair, Zoro and Zazas have not really been fighting a great deal, so it's no surprise there. So both red buffs have been taken by Ninjas in Pyjamas, but of course that means the gold still just edged in their favor because they got that bottom turret down earlier on.
And I'm still kind of amazed that KMT is up 2-0 in this series. Not because they haven't deserved their wins, but because it was so unexpected coming in. NIP was seemingly a shoo-in for the LCS here. And this would be a monumental upset if they get 3-0'd, because we haven't heard anything like, maybe thinking back to the spring split of 2013, where I think it was against all authority. They had a lot of inner turmoil in their team right before it was happening. NIP's a team that gets along great. You and me were talking to them yesterday. They were very confident coming in. They seem to have done a lot of preparation and research. But KMT, with that 2 weeks that we talked about where no one could really see what they were doing. There were no detectives on the case because they weren't the most known players. No one was really thinking that they were preparing anything amazing. But look at this. Still close in goal, 1 game away. Nothing bad has happened yet in game 3, much like games 1 and 2. They very well could sweep this.
And there's no pressure, honestly, coming into this one on them because they were expected to win it. There was, but maybe that's pressure they put on themselves. Who knows? Because, well, we do have a pause coming into this one. And, well, we're only 10 minutes gone into this game. As it stands, though, we do see Dave sat there just having discussions with the player to see what exactly is the issue. But the headset has got back on, so hopefully it will be a quick fix. We're just waiting for them to sort themselves out. You can see him on the screen. And we're talking about pressure. The pressure on these guys. This is their career. These guys have been chasing this their whole gaming lives, effectively, because...
Especially these guys.
Well, who the hell doesn't want to be a paid gamer? Let's put it that way. I mean, what kid in their own mind would not want to be in their situation right now?
And of all the people that play League of Legends, these are the very best in the world. Everyone's watching them because they're so good at League of Legends right now, because it's so entertaining. But you can even see right now, they're sitting in this pause, they're not able to discuss what's going on, and they need to be thinking about kind of their next move in this game, because they, even though it's been slow,
it's a mouse
have made
issue,
the first move in a lot of these games previously. Mouse issue.
Mouse issue. So that's not that big a deal. You take it out and plug it back in again. It's a USB mouse. How do you fix these things?
Right here.
Absolutely. Yeah. Reset the machine. That's what fixes 95% of the problems. But let's look at the game. Let's see how it is right now. They're going to be unpausing in a few moments. But right now, 1-0 in towers. Pretty even. The duo lanes actually have stuck down the bottom. That surprised me. I was expecting maybe NIP's duo lane to move back up to top, but they've chosen to stick back to that bottom lane, up against the Lucian and Fiddlesticks.
Which is surprising since they haven't gotten a turret trade yet. Yeah. So it's definitely a mismatch of turrets on one side of the map versus the other now that we're back into the game.
Well, here we go. We're back in there. 10 minutes 40 on the clock. So far, 51-minute average game time. If you guys have been paying attention to this one, you would have seen that it is very much switched up this time around. And look at this.
All 5 new players
ganks coming out this time around. Lucian sat there. Vander staying well away up on the top lane tri-bush area, along with Jankos, who's trying to sneak into that bush, but he's going to get spotted by a ward.
And the safety here is actually if Mithy sits much farther behind Freeze, because it's going to be a substantial amount of lockdown, but they'll only need a split second to click on the lantern if he can get it there. Whereas if Mithy sits in the front, there's no saving him. Instead, they're just going to brute force this one and not do anything.
And unsurprisingly, in the top lane, we are seeing Zoro once again between the towers. And this is something he's done all 3 games, but while it puts pressure down, not a great deal
Not enough. Well, the thing that might be beneficial for them this game is Lee Sin can join the counter-jungling party as well. Before, it was just Renekton by himself, and he never had assistance when they collapsed on him. Now when they collapse on him, they might be able to force skirmishes.
And we see Overpower heading south. We have Jankos there, and this is going to be the first tower for KMT. The minion wave not going to be enough, I don't think, because, well, we just saw Freeze putting the pressure down and clearing out that wave of minions. We also see Overpower had to return to that middle lane because Nukeduck has been putting pressure on towards that middle turret the entire time. Now he's got Hercubot there. Overpower is actually completely out of position here, out of swords. Not too sure how to go about this one from behind.
And that all came because Hercubot approached from the red buff side jungle of KMT. The only way he gets that angle is from coming there.
And look at the ward coverage in the top half of the jungle that they have now there. Zoro and Hercubot littering out that top jungle, putting a security net down there. Zaza's taking a lot of damage, just a slight step away from the tower there. And he's already down to half health. No other pressure is going to come towards him. And this bottom lane of Freeze and Mithy has actually held out such a long time against KMT, despite the fact they just tried to 4-member stack it.
Yeah, they didn't think it would be a good idea and try to dive on that because they haven't been able to land any sticking harass on them. Freeze and Mithy are sitting at very high health. 0-0, though, is going to walk away. I thought they were going to try to gank him there.
Well, he's going to make the return bout. But again, no Assault and Battery come out yet. No Lee Sin jumping in and kicking. No aggression at all from either jungler.
I mean, at this point, it's really on NIP to do it. Only because KMT has been able to win the slow games so far by being the disengaged team. And they have no reason at this point to get there. Once, they're really just waiting for Overpow to get a death cap, or even just a needlessly large rod on Nidalee and a couple blue buffs, and just start sieging up. Since they know that NIP's engaging potential hasn't been enough throughout the series, and KMT is comfortable playing the disengaged game.
And paired up with the culling that Salavar's got, that's something that they could do over and over and over again. They could just keep that pressure down, but right now it seems that they are both happy to play the slower game, and Salavar this time thinking, I'll take this turret down on my own. You're not there. Hercubot is making his way down, though. Hasn't been spotted, needs the ping ward down, and this time he may try and land the kick, but instead he has to use it on the opposition jungler, as that was a good counter from Jankos.
Well, he did land the kick on a Vi.
That's true.
Who landed the punch. Just together and off again. 14 minutes in now. No first blood. I did say this game would have more action than game 2. It still might.
The potential is there. We're with you on this one, chat. Don't worry. You and everybody else in this crowd and everybody at home watching in comfy confines. Watching once again Hercubot taking that red buff, and the counter red buff again also coming out from 0-0 in the top half of the jungle. So both times, this time though, Olaf is going to contest it. They're coming around and he may try and Tricorp's problems. 0-0 a long way from home this time around, has to use that Dominus on towards him. Zaza's just bullying him straight up out away from that red buff, but that means
great timing.
Hercubot now can moat around, and they took that dragon before, they're going to get it again.
Really, really great timing right there by 0-0. He actually had a 2-level edge before that happened, but the culling just crushes him.
Brushing down, and that's Mithy that goes down. First blood eventually coming out there. The dragon did get picked up by Hercubot, but that is going to be Nukeduck going down, so it's a double kill for a dragon in the bottom area of the map.
Wow. I did not expect the culling to take that much life off of Mithy. He just could not escape the bullet, one bullet after next. Even though they secured the dragon, because they died, they're also losing the bottom turret, and there's the dive!
Assault and Battery followed by Crowstorm is gonna take down Hercubot, and it's KMT once again in the lead, 3-0 up, and now 1,000 gold ahead. They're pushing down this middle turret.
And here's the action we were waiting for, D-Man. 3 kills and a dragon, plus a whole bunch of pushing. How must NIP be feeling right now? This is just seeming like a repeat of the first 2 games. They play controlled in the early game. They start going for some type of dragon objective, and then they lose it. And they get behind, the game extends, they don't know how to make plays to come back, and that's how KMT's 2-0 up right now.
And Salavar absolutely shredding that bottom turret. Again, this top lane bout, while 0-0, well, he may be winning it, he may be 30 CS ahead. Who cares? The rest of your team are losing across the map. He's got to start getting involved.
That, I believe, was a spear right into the culling, and then he just went point-blank range to hit him and then managed to flash out of the box. So the box went completely unhelped. Of course, the Orianna Nukeduck came down because that was a 3v4. That was a fight NIP thought they were going to be able to collapse on. Since Mithy died so early, and since Nukeduck got feared by, you know, the longest 3 seconds of your life right there, he fell down as well.
Well, we saw a giant Orianna shockwave landing for alternate as they qualified 3-2, and honestly, right now, all I'm seeing is it's going to have to happen again, this time from Nukeduck. It can change games, but it's going to have to do a mighty lot, because right now, NIP are playing into the hands of KMT.
Absolutely. KMT in so much control. Obviously, the only one that's 2 levels behind is Zazus right here, but he's not costing the team anything for that. If 0-0 could involve himself in team fights that also had Olaf, then we would see that 2-level advantage come into effect. But if all he's doing is farming in between the turrets and keeping the CS even and not even killing turrets or successfully counter-jungling, does not matter, as you said.
It doesn't, and that middle turret, that's almost gone. Bottom inner turret, almost gone. While the top turret, 0-0, is taking a long time to get it. He's been farming between the towers, and that's not putting the pressure down that he needed. We talked about this in game 2 and 3 now that he needs to start putting pressure on the turret. He needs to alleviate to get everybody else involved in this. He needs to start joining his team.
Yeah, well, at least KMT is coming to him right now. But that's because KMT is very close to poke mode right now. The Needlessly Large Rod and the Sorcerer Shoes have been completed onto Nidalee. Xaxus is trying to keep Zoro occupied, and now everyone is just coming up top lane.
Yeah, there's going to be 3 members drawn towards him. That's going to be Dominus running down. He is starting to back away from this one, but is it going to be in time? The spears come across. They're just going to save out that turret. That's going to buy NIP time to push the mid.
NIP is trying to take advantage of KMT while trying to assist, but KMT's rotations have been exquisite throughout this whole game.
Ooh.
That's one of the reasons NIP hasn't been able to find any fights. Anytime KMT adjusts to a new lane, they're not leaving themselves open to anything bad happening. And that's generally how NIP likes to find fights.
Both middle turrets very low from both sides. Spears from Overpower. We just saw it landing on Mithy there. Almost took his entire life out because Rapidon's death cap is slowly being completed. The Athenes and Holy Grail already on there. And like you say, they are approaching that poke mode. Once he gets that blue buff again, which he's just heading towards now, he's going to start being a real menace, which we've seen Nidalee be so many times. It's very hard to answer those spears.
Once he gets this blue buff, the games are really going to start for him. And I'm trying to think back to these 3 games right now, D-Man. And we know that NIP, or at least the 3 of the players that were Lemon Dogs last split, like to play slow. And they try to just make fewer mistakes than the other team. That's kind of what their memo has been? No, that's not it. Motto.
They could have wrote that memo, the motto on a memo. I don't know.
Too far. But KMT hasn't made mistakes. Most of their play has been, while low risk, completely flawless. They've done so many just smart little things, and it's why they've just grinded out 2 games in a row and are on pace for a 3rd.
They're going to try 2v1 the top lane. It's going to be Zorozu that's going to face check straight in towards Jankos. He clears out that ward though and backs away, and that's just going to buy yet a little more time. But now the Sunfire Cape's completed by Xaxus. Xaxus can just sit on that tower all day. Spear not quite landing on Mithy, but again, keeping that pressure down. Spear's being thrown out. This time it does land. Half his hit points gone. Mithy, you've got to back away.
And Zoro trying to get something on Xaxus, but of course, he has backup. There was no pressure on the mid lane, so as soon as he ran towards it, the mid lane feigned coming up top, saves off Olaf.
And while this is all happening, Salavar again, back in the bottom lane, continues to keep on pushing that inner turret along the bottom lane. And it is very low, don't forget, because he had some free time on it. Almost as low as those 2 middle turrets.
They're just playing the same game. It's a different team composition. This one is more poke-oriented, but they're still keeping pressure, or at least presence, in 3 lanes at a time and keeping NIP contained. 0 kills in 21 minutes for NIP this time. I believe this is the longest they have gone in any of their 3 games without getting kills. Maybe they can control the next dragon, but unless Zoro comes down to fight, I don't think they can win it.
Xaxus is up there as well with that Ghost Ragnarok, so he's going to keep him busy even if he tries to make a move for it. However, Jankos is backing off. They don't really have the timing on it set down like they have done the last few times. KMT have been straight onto the dragon in previous matches. This time around, they could both contest.
It looks a little bit like Zoro's on autopilot right now. Maybe he's checked out of this because he thinks he's doing his job. He is keeping a level advantage and a farm advantage heavily over Xaxus' Olaf. But the team needs him right now, and now he's finally coming mid.
He's coming down there. Salavar's also coming across. That's going to be the shockwave. Actually called on towards Vander. He's going to get dropped down. That's the play. This may be the play they needed. The first kill for them. Ace in the Hole's going to come through on towards Salavar. Salavar in all out of position here. He's just been chased into enemy ground, and there's no way he's going to escape it. Has he got the timer, though? Can he run to that tower? Has the time been running long enough? Not too sure it has. That Ace in the Hole landed a moment ago, which is why he's trying to bait his time while this is all happening, though. KMT are closing ground. He's going to turn it back around. Herkebot gets dropped by Salavar, and that is a big mistake by NIP.
Salavar pulling the great escape, and now it's right back at KMT. Even though Zoro came down to get them a kill, it all went wrong when they overchased Salavar, who was a stacked Lucian.
And now KMT come around and pick up the dragon. NIP, they get the kill, they chase around, they get pulled a merry dance by KMT, and they pull that advantage back. A turret and a dragon, all in a clean sweep.
This is getting closer and closer to the end for NIP right now. And KMT will look fantastic, but just check this out. He actually takes a turret shot and goes onto a trap. So Hercubot thinks he has it, but the burst that came out from Selavar, getting his spells out with the double shot and the W at the end, just lets him walk away with style.
Incredible stuff. Spears continue to rain through from Overpower. Blue buff is not on him right now, though, so he's going to have to cool it a little, which is why we see him backing off. That's going to be the Rabadon's Death Cap, I feel, being picked up by him as well. And still those middle turrets, he's actually going to stick around a little bit longer. So, the only kill so far for NIP has been on Vander. Has been a lot blown at it as well, just for that one singular kill to get that support down. Meanwhile, KMT seemingly starting to make plays across the map.
Yeah, and a lot of those were actually reactionary because they were the ones that got engaged on in the top lane. And then Selavar was looking to execute, to be honest, when he pulled off that play on Hercubot and just miraculously picked up another kill because Hercubot came at him solo.
Yeah, I think he's probably quite amazed nobody else went along the bottom lane as well.
Pretty happy about it.
Just probably thinking, how did that work in my favor? It was just simply trying to get something out of nothing, and suddenly he gets away scot-free as well. Freeze trying to take those golems out, but Selavar is close by. Mithy will get spotted out, which means the middle lane is almost left free. We only got Nuke Duck there, and there's 3 members of KMT going to push in. They only need to take a couple of tower hits to take that down, but I'm surprised nobody's actually pulled the trigger on it yet.
Well, they don't need to take any risks, and KMT is a team that hasn't been making mistakes. So the reward for that is taking a risky turret, but the safe play is just wait until they have a few minions, go get a shot without taking turret aggro, and walk away with the turret kill.
Selavar is really a pain in the backside down that bottom lane. It's going to be Xaxus that gets aggressed upon by Zoro. Dominus has been popped. Xaxus just walks in towards his tower. He hasn't got Ghost available. Ragnarok was there, but really doesn't help him a great deal against Zoro because he's only got that one stun, which is not going to cause him too many issues.
I'm a little surprised that Zoro didn't go for a more offensive Renekton build. Oftentimes when you see Renektons with large leads, you'll see them go for a Tiamat into a Ravenous Hydra and maybe try to cut a little bit of damage. But as long as he's pure tank Renekton, he is a team fight force and a lane annoyance, but it doesn't go beyond that. And as long as he's stuck in that lane against Xaxus, Xaxus will be able to hold off.
Well, we thought the pressure might continue a little bit here, but it's still only 5 kills in 25 minutes, averaging 1 every 5 minutes. But here's going to be Xaxus. They, like you say, they want to dive him. No, Hercubot, please
just
dive
not pulling
him.
the trigger on anything right now.
Not going to go for it instead. Selavar continues to clear. Maybe going to try and catch on towards Freeze here. Trying to support the damage down, and that's going to force Freeze away. The calling comes out here. Forces him well away there. He wants to take the tower down. Ace in the Hole's going to come out. He's quite safe, or is he? No! Tower hit! What?
Because the tower was dead. The hit didn't do damage.
Oh, my God. But now he's in trouble. He's going to get caught out. That's a party time coming out from Vander, but he's a little too late because Mithy had already pulled the trigger. Now he's stood on towards the trap. Mithy's going to continue on. He gets hooked in there. He's going to pull straight in towards Jankos. Hercubot's going to join the party, but this is too late. Mithy's going to go down, and it's going to be another kill for KMT.
Hercubot kind of waved goodbye. He's like, no, I'm not helping that one. And that was another back and forth, but that was a risk that Selavar took, and the shutdown he gave to Thresh wasn't necessarily that smart. Didn't cost him too much, though. They only give up the 1 death back, and it was just to Thresh anyways.
Double sweeper, making sure they get full coverage of that, and that's a red buff steal for the first time from KMT. They're going to drive on through. Remember, that's an inner turret down in that bottom lane. Here's going to be the middle turret going down. The minions should take care of that one. But we were about to take a look at it, but instead we saw Maywell have a bit of coverage in this top lane.
Yeah, this is an interesting point in the game because KMT has pulled ahead by quite a lot at this point. 27 minutes in. If we go by the averages, 24 minutes away from getting their next spot in the LCS.
There's another turret down. It's 4-1 to KMT. It's starting to look disastrous for the Ninjas in Pyjamas fans. Their onesies will not be selling like hotcakes, that's for sure, if they get knocked out at LCS. And instead, it could well be 5 members of NIP. They have onesies. Huh. It would be 5 members of NIP possibly looking for new homes.
Yeah, absolutely. They're very talented players, all of them.
Absolutely.
They're considered the best, some of the best players in Europe. That's why 3 of them were on Lemon Dogs. The First place regular season team, second place from the European playoffs. Hercubot was considered to be one of the best, if not the best players on SK Gaming. And then Freeze, the one remaining member from NIP from the last season split, Edward called them the best AD carry in Europe. They're all highly respected players in this scene to a bunch of guys on KMT who have been around for a while but never really made it. And a lot of them just consider them, oh, those guys again, and maybe took them a little lightly. But they've come together, and they've found something good.
And the thing is, we've only ever heard good stuff about NIP, how they've done in scrims. Everybody's saying they are a really strong team right now. They're doing so well in scrims, but scrims don't mean anything when you get on the big stage, when you get in this pressure situation. There is no pressure on you in scrims. You are just trying things out. You never know the team you're up against, what exactly they're trying and whether they're going to try something to fool you. But as it is right now, KMT have done serious research on NIP, it seems, and know exactly how to counter them. They said it in the videos themselves. We know what they play. We know what we're going to do against them.
You can see that NIP has occasional issues of finding creative ways to fight. So KMT have brought a style that is very heavy to disengage in all 3 games and very much an anti-fight team. And they've really done that same mindset all 3 games, and it's been a brilliant plan thus far.
The Dragon, will it be contested this time by Hercubot? Standing by just off the side. Jankos does not know he's there this time around. And he's ready to step away. He's got the rest of the team. They're actually having a little bit of a merry dance just off the side here. Ace in the hole will be used on Vanna. That's going to take him low into this fight. Dragon still taking drops. Will they go for it? It's already been finished off. KMT pick it up. Will they go aggressive? Zoro is the focus target. But instead, KMT choose to call it and back away.
Going aggressive there would not have actually fit with KMT's plan here. I'm actually very surprised NIP didn't rush into the Dragon Pit because a poke team puts themselves at most risk when they put their backs to an objective. And that's actually what KMT would have done there. But they got out of that with the Dragon. So battle won for them, and they're up even more gold now.
Zoro, while all that was happening, did take that top turret down. So they have got 2 turrets now, and that middle turret is actually pretty low.
He missed his dash.
He missed his dash there.
A rare mistake.
Very rare, it seems, for Selavar so far, because he's played very well in this series right now. But this middle turret, they're not going to give up on it. Despite the fact it is very low, they are not allowing NIP to get themselves a foothold back in this game.
And you can see Overpower really wants to run off and get that blue buff. So they're going to try and sneak that right now before the turret push comes up. It looks like they've done it.
Yep, Spear lands, finds its target. This time around, Zero's the one that's backing away as they keep on poking him towards it. Static Shiv being put to use there by Freeze as they push on through. Are they going to pull the trigger on that shockwave? Selavar's taken low, but Miffy eats one of those spears, and that's really all it takes for one of these poke teams. Once they land that spear on the support, they have to disengage.
And in some regions like Korea, Nidalee is nearly a perma-banned champion. But because there were so many other priorities here, and there's been so many tanks that are being dominant, it didn't seem like the Nidalee spear poke would be that prevalent. It just so happened to be a great pick in this matchup.
Uh-oh, that's going to be the top lane wave, and that will be time for NIP to take down that middle turret. That's going to hamper the vision now. Both teams without that middle turret. It's going to mean wards are going to have to get placed deeper. So far, KMT have been the ones being aggressive, though. And now, for the first time, we may see NIP starting to try and shove in there. They did get the first turret of the game, but you can see Dragon control. 11 of the 17 Dragons have been picked up by KMT in just 3 games.
Definite objective control. And it's the thing that they've been beating NIP in because the fights haven't necessarily happened. KMT has always been avoiding them. And Zazuz may be at a point now where he's starting to beat Zoro in these trades. He's tanked up, he's got a little bit of extra sustain, and no matter how tanky Zoro gets now, Olaf's true damage is going to be able to cut through him.
Yeah, and especially when he returns to lane with half hit points. That's a juicy target for anyone, really. Zazuz is not going to let that one slide. He goes back. What's he going to buy? Bilge Water Cutlass, it seems, has gone there. So got the standard Spirit Massage and Sunfire Cape completed already. But look at this. Middle lane, Overpow. Now got himself that Rabadon's Death Cap and the Void Staff in there, along with that Athene. So those spears are going to be coming for days and doing a lot of damage. Meanwhile, Nuke Duck, he's got that Rabadon's also completed. Going to be going towards the seemingly Liliandras. We'll see whether he completes that, though.
And something that's actually a little curious to me is that there's no Locket of the Iron Solari completed yet. Hercubot is going towards it. He just got the Aegis of the Legion, which will have a benefit to the Nidalee spears that hit the whole team. Having a little bit of magic resist for everyone is so critical against these Nidalee spears.
Mithy realizing the danger, knowing that spear was zeroing in towards him, already sidestepped it. Meanwhile, it's 5-2 in kills, and the game is progressing again. So
this is so
carries,
similar to the first and second game.
Completely. It's 5-2. I believe we were at 5-2 for a while in game 1. And as it stands, it's going to be all down to the AD carries like it was in the previous games, but it was also down to Overpower's Kale. Not in it this time around, but them spears, they're going to start causing so many problems because they're going to be hitting harder and harder and harder as the game progresses. It's not the same as it was in the early 3.13 days. Season 3, when those spears continued, obviously people were pouncing away to get the longer range. It is the new Nidalee, but it still hurts.
It still hurts extremely so. And Zoro0 has yet to become involved in this 1-0 and 0. Again, 268 CS. Not the same number he was actually able to get in the first couple of games, but the same level of involvement is definitely there, which is very low.
And you were talking about whether they could fight each other. Now that that Blade of the Rune King is complete, I'm not too sure they can. Xaxus is now very strong, and he's going to be rushing through that team. There's not a lot they can do. They can't stop him. They can't slow him. Freeze is going to have to run for his life.
Yeah, and we have to actually track how this 5v5 siege goes right now. The Olaf's not going to dive on top of the turret. So this siege is all about whether Nidalee could land enough spears. And since there's no blue buff on Overpow, they're really just going to disengage and keep farming this one. KMT has no qualms about taking this 150.
That spear did a third of the health of Zoro0 alone. And he is the tankiest member by far. And that would be
MR.
2/3 of damage off Zoro0. No MR, like you say.
Yep.
The only MR really onto him is the Aegis that's on as Hercubot. So as it stands, NIP are in real trouble.
Yeah, unbelievable upset if this happens. The highest percentage fan vote we've had from any of the 3 promotion series. And wow.
And let's not forget, this was NIP with the highest seed coming into this. This was their choice. This match, SK Gaming wanted KMT because they'd beaten them at DreamHack, but instead, they weren't first choice, so they got Super Hot Crew. That went close. That went close for sure.
Well, here's the other side of the coin right here from NIP, because they are actually not out of this one yet. The goal in this game is still close, and the lead hasn't changed gold-wise. Has been about 5,000 for at least 10 minutes. Additionally, instead of KMT having Kale this time, who, as we saw at the end of the game, could take down 2 people by herself, Overpow's Nidalee can poke, but if they can force a team fight and actually get in there, NIP will have the advantage. Not the case against Kale. NIP has a higher chance of winning this one than they did the previous 2.
Well, they're trying to keep the red buff secured, but instead, while that's all happening, of course, you just saw it on your screen, the 4th dragon of the game, and now the 12th of 18 dragons for KMT throughout the series. They really have that on lockdown. And now, Ninjas in Pyjamas not going to get closed in on. It's going to be KMT continuing to just farm out every advantage they have. Blue buff will be going across to Overpow.
And you can really just tell, though, that KMT crafted a strategy specifically for NIP. This is not how regular challenger teams play. Regular challenger teams have bloody games, especially near the start of a new season. They do crazy aggressive things. They play fast. KMT is doing the opposite of all of those things because they know and knew it would be good against this NIP lineup.
Very disciplined performance from them, as tenacious performance, some might say as well, but they are just not really worried, and now actually pushing towards the top lane, pushing towards that Baron. The spear finds Zoro0, chunks another 1,000 hit points away from him. He may well be the strongest member of the team, but have NIP caught them out, or have KMT turned it around? Assault battery on Freeze, tries to get away, the box comes down, but he finally gets dropped by the culling, and that's going to be the 2nd kill. Double kill now, both carries down. KMT can just push straight on the base.
It took them 36 minutes, but they found that moment. They knew they had so many more people in that fight, and they will push on this turret, no matter if they have minions or not.
They may go for the inhibitor turret as well because they're tanking through this one, no problems at all. Of course, the heals that can come out from from Overpower should be enough, and that means it's going to be Xaxus that's going to tank this one out. He's got plenty of damage in there. That's going to be an inhibitor turret going down. NIP are in desperate times.
And they only have 3 people up, but their 2 main damage dealers are down. Clean push through for KMT. What a performance thus far.
Serious panic mode now for Ninjas in Pyjamas. They are in almost an unsurmountable position because KMT are just turning and running for Baron.
And they're still down 2 people because KMT was so decisive once they started this. There is a potential for a Hercubot steal. He has to try, but KMT can so easily shut him off of this.
Surprise party thrown out. Vander chasing down Hercubot. The Baron is not available to smite yet because they're purposely delaying.
They gotta stop hitting Baron.
They've got to stop hitting it. They've got to back away. They're going to go for Hercubot, and they're still tanking it out here. The Lantern pulls him away. The Baron's low. They're going to try and help.
He might get it.
Will he go? No, he doesn't get it. Hercubot gets taken down, and now they're turning and burning. Can they get on towards Zora Zero? Salavar fancies it, pops the culling. Meanwhile, Nuke chokes a shockwave just off the side, but he gets caught out with his own battery. He's going to get dropped down now. He's in all sorts of trouble. He takes the Lantern once again, flashes away, but look at Salavar. Salavar deep in trouble, but he's got a Guardian Angel, and he saves the down. Now it's the Baron of KMT trying to find their place in the LCS.
And they're just going to continue. Double kill by Nidalee. This could be it, D-Man.
Well, Ninjas in Pyjamas suddenly turned this game on its head, and KMT drive through their base. It was NIP that were looking, but it was KMT that found them. And this is Ninjas in Pyjamas going out of the LCS. We have ourselves a second new team, ladies and gentlemen. It is KMT.
And this game was the fastest and most decisive of the 3. KMT, so much preparation. No one knew what they were going to do coming into this, but did they ever have a plan?
I hate to see teams going out, and especially when it's 3 members of a team that finished in first place in the league. Second place overall. They went to the World Championships, 3 of these members, and now they are out of the LCS. The Coke Challenger Series awaits for them, but that's a small commiseration for a team that was flying so high last year.
They took a big chance, all switching over to this NIP roster and saying they knew they could requalify, and it has not paid off.
That is going to hit them hard. I don't even think it's sunk in right now, just what exactly that is going to mean to them, because Ninjas in Pyjamas, you know, ever since they broke onto the scene, this team in the form of the Copenhagen Wolves originally, they were 0-9 down in the league. Everybody, every fan around the world got behind them to get that first win. It was all about Bjergsen. Bjergsen stepped away. He went to Team Solo Mid. They found themselves a new man in Nuke, you know, the man who finished top of the league. They thought they had the team sorted out, but what an incredible story. KMT in the LCS.
This has to be the biggest upset we've ever had in a promotion tournament.
Absolutely, by far. A 3-0 clean sweep, unheard of.
Of what looked to be the strongest team in the promotion tournament. Got swept.
Crazy, crazy stuff. I am actually shocked myself because I had this down as a 3-0 clean sweep for NIP.
We thought it was going to happen that way, but did KMT ever have something else planned? I mean, they must feel awesome right now.
They must be feeling awesome. Wow. I am blown away by that. Poland, again, you have a representative, and it is the KMT. And look at that. They're standing, getting photos down there. They don't even have the team jerseys set up because KMT is not a sponsored team. So they are certainly going to have a couple of offers coming their way after this one, that is for sure. Because this is a team that's jumped through a number of organizational hoops. Nobody's really stood behind them. Nobody's given them the chance. They created it themselves.
I mean, I got to say, everyone on their team performed quite well. That's what happens when you have a 3-0 clean sweep. They only gave up 2 kills in the first and the third game. And then the second game was the only one that was pretty contentious. Like 2 kills to 10. Especially because every other game throughout this weekend has been really high kills. These games have been really bloody. And they found a way to slow things down and just play as smart as possible, which I have to emphasize. That's not what challenger teams do. They play fast, they play aggressive, they're crazy, they make tons of mistakes. Totally opposite.
This is just, I am kind of blown away by this.
They played a little bit like
I want to pull back to what happened in the summer. There was a team that a lot of people hadn't heard of that blew away against All Authority 3-0, and we thought AAA were in disarray. That team was now the Lemon Dogs. That team has just gone out. Effectively.
By another, like, surprise 3-0 victor.
KMT do the same? Can they come through? You know, we talked about how cocky they were. They were like, we're going to top the league. They did. Yeah.
Well, this adds a huge new wrinkle into the next LCS season because we weren't really sure who was going to be coming into this because KMT is just a wild card now. No one is really expecting him to come in like this.
No, absolutely. And just think of the round robin, the last game against TCM. TCM are going to be looking at this and thinking, that could have been us. That could have been us. So much pressure, so many things on the line, so many moments in these games turn things around. And honestly, you've got to look at maybe the picks and bans throughout this, and should they have adapted earlier on to the Kale? Should they have maybe even tried to squeeze the Mundo through, try and get something, try and, as a lot of these teams like to call it, let those overpowered champions through and maybe get to them themselves.
Here's the thing that I like the most about this, and these guys also played slow at DreamHack as well, but it's totally different strategies because the 5 champions they played in the final game, which was potentially their most decisive game, they didn't play in the first 2, you know? So
it was a complete change,
So absolutely, I think Kale shouldn't have been in the second game, but that doesn't mean the result of the series would have changed. Because a 3-0, best of 5s are very decisive when you get 3-0'd, right?
So do we look at this and say somebody underperformed? Because I'm not too sure. I mean, it was just a good team synergy. Every time NIP tried to do something, KMT reacted, and they were there. Every time they tried to push a tower, they reacted. Really, the ganks didn't come from either jungler, so you can't even point at that.
It did seem like NIP could have done for a bit better game planning because they seemed like they just kind of walked in with their strategy, their slow plays, like, oh, maybe the game will just win for us. Whereas the game-changing decisions were all made by KMT. NIP could have used a little bit more initiative.
And, you know, we talked about during it, they came in at 1:30, they got back to practicing, over-practice, maybe tired themselves out, worn themselves out, should have been fresh the day before. There's so many different things that could have happened, but coulda, woulda, shoulda, maybe, who knows? But KMT